of a two-day trip to India. The visit all aimed at fixing an important trading relationship between the two countries that was, fractured under Donald Trump's presidency. Thai will likely attempt to negotiate better access for American companies to, certainly one of the world's biggest markets and fastest growing economies, while India will certainly be keen to have certain tariffs rescinded. So on that note, let's jump straight over to Professor Rupa Chanda, who's Director for the Trade, Investment and Innovation Division at IIMB. Rupa, really good to have you with us. Do you think we'll see any of, rescinding of some of these tariffs for either side? Because they are an irritant for both of them, aren't they?
Absolutely. The last 2 years, we've seen a lot of trade frictions between India and the US. But unfortunately, I think that we can't expect any revoking of tariffs right away, because the Biden administration has made it very clear that bringing down trade barriers in its partner countries is one of its foremost priorities. Unless India comes forward and does something with regard to agricultural market access, bringing down some of its resistance on dairy product access, or does something on cross-border data transfers. There are just so many sensitive areas. If India doesn't do something more in terms of granting market access, I doubt that the US is going to revoke any of its tariffs. There's also the added problem of the proposed retaliatory tariffs in response to India's digital levy, the services tax levy, which perhaps may not come in place, but there are a lot of irritants out there. Yes.
Well, Rupa, you touched on it, because I was going to ask you, would India be willing to allow more market access for the big American companies, whether that be in tech or retail? Yeah. You touched on it, but I'm just wondering, is there an appetite at all in India for allowing that to happen?
Okay, I think this is a very difficult juncture. We have major state elections coming up. We've just repealed the Farm Bill. So creating any sort of problems with major domestic constituencies like traders would be quite problematic. So what I'm referring to here is, for instance, the restrictions on e-commerce companies, which would affect the Amazons and the Walmarts, and the kind of restrictions that are in place in terms of, flash sales, deep discounts, having stakes in sellers who are given a platform to sell on these, the e-commerce giants' websites. So I think the appetite is really not there right now. There's a
Rupa, sorry to interrupt. Just very briefly, do you think the US and India want to strengthen their economic battle with China by working more together? Just very briefly, if you can.
Yes, I think there are lots of areas. One is definitely energy security, the whole focus on renewables. I think this is a tremendous area for cooperation and technology transfer and increased trade and investment flows. Another is health security. I think given the IP waiver and the endorsement, at least so far by the US on it, and let's see what happens in the WTO, I think this is another very important area where bilateral cooperation can be used to strengthen economic ties.
Okay. Professor Rupa Chanda, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, time's ticking on. I've got to go. Thank you, Rupa.